So, guys, I'm outside for a couple of minutes because, my brother's home and, he's going to be cooking all day. So, I just wanted to do this video really, really quick. With AEW Blood and Guts, it was definitely a really, really great show. And really, there were a bunch of standout stars for that night. And I really would say the biggest star is Kyle O'Reilly. And I think with AEW, they really, really struggled for a long time. To really build new stars, and they really just don't capitalize on momentum. So I really think that, I would hope to see Kyle O'Reilly in bigger spots. And the other issue with Kyle O'Reilly is that he does kind of fall into that other issue with AEW, is that they have a lot of factions. And one of the reasons why they do a lot of factions and tag teams and triple teams and multi-person matches and six-man matches and 6-on-6 and other things like that is because that way everybody's kind of featured. And then also, too, it goes into that thing about, but there's also diminishing return, because sometimes what happens in life is that if you always do something like, okay, we're always going to do tag teams and whatever, you never develop characters. And that's one of the reasons why when they had Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy, they left the company, because there was no sense of, make us more than just really great matches and everything like that, really. But when I saw Kyle Fletcher, he bled the most, and I was saying, damn, that really shows something. And then also, too, with him, that he's been wrestling for, I think about 20 years. I believe he was in WWE for a while, but to me, I think he's more close to Bryan Danielson than any other wrestler, because they've tried to make Wheeler Yuta the next Bryan Danielson, and that's not working. And that's going to, fail in a lot of ways, because Wheeler Yuta just, you look at his face, you look at his hair, he looks very aloof and other things like that. So I just think that, you also had Kyle O'Reilly tap out Jon Moxley, and a couple of weeks where Jon Moxley tried to chicken shit his way out of it, really. So it kind of goes down to that big thing I've said about AEW. What are you going to do with Kyle O'Reilly? Are you going to make him a big star, or are you going to say, hey, the next couple of weeks we're just going to not do anything with that momentum, really? And I've kind of said, too, that I really think that with Kyle O'Reilly, there are a couple of matches you can do at Full Gear. And on my list, the first one you can do is Kyle O'Reilly versus Jon Moxley in a submission match. And I think that would be the best way to go. The next match you can do, if you feel that's repetitive, is Kyle O'Reilly versus Okada for the International Championship. Because remember, the Don Callis family attacked Mark Briscoe, so you can do something like that's like a punishment match. And then you can do Takeshita and Kyle O'Reilly and Okada all in the Continental Classic. The other thing that you can do is Takeshita versus Kyle O'Reilly, as a punishment. Like Tony Khan says, one of you guys has to face Kyle O'Reilly because you guys, cheated, or you attacked Mark Briscoe. And, that wasn't right, really, because, obviously in the Blood and Guts, that's a very high stakes match, really, So you could do those three matches, really, because that way, Takeshita is a really great wrestler. Anybody who has a great match with him gets elevated. Like Anthony Bowens, they said that his best match was real with Takeshita, really. So could you imagine 20 or 30 minutes with Kyle O'Reilly and Takeshita, or you have Okada and Takeshita, and maybe do something where, you have Takeshita come down and he kind of caused an interference, or you have Okada and Takeshita and Don Callis both on the both at ringside and other things like that. And then, Okada's just kind of being arrogant. He's trying to antagonize Takeshita, and Don Callis is saying stuff like, oh, well, you know what? It's just rivalry. It's a friendly rivalry. And then eventually Okada loses. And that would be good, because Okada should not be holding 3 or 4 belts if he's not going to be defending it, So you kind of have to do something. We're going to strip some of his power a little bit away. And then that way, once he loses the international championship, you can do something like say, okay, since he only has one of those belts, you have to get rid of the unified championship, because I don't see the purpose of a unified championship in AEW. So all the things are very, very important. So I really just hope that with Kyle O'Reilly, they actually do some stuff with him, because, it's all about momentum, and that thing about, as I said, that they can do what they did with Wardlow, which was Wardlow was popular, but they didn't really have a elevation really. That's sometimes when a wrestler stands out, you got to do something, because, how should I kind of say that? That's what WWE does all the time, really. When there's a wrestler that's over, especially in the Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, Survivor Series, or other big spots, they say, hey, you know what, we gotta just, we gotta just, we have to understand that that's, something in the oven, really. We gotta, cook it, either slow, or either on the spot, really, and serve it, really. We just don't let it go stale, really. So that's my big hope for this. I think that Kyle O'Reilly has a lot to give, and my big concern is that they're not going to do anything with him. So I really hope that they do push Kyle O'Reilly, because the motherfucker really deserves it.